So just a heads up, if you're just listening to this episode and you haven't listened to the previous episode, you're going to be lost. So this is just part 2 to our story about missing 3-year-old Jarod Atadero.
If you compare beer with bratwurst,
And cheese with wine,
or even whiskey,
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons,
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
Okay, so we are on part 2 of
Trying to make sense
Wild Journey
of ridiculousness.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So are we in agreement that it wasn't a mountain lion?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
No
mountain lion.
So
And what about abduction?
Dumb fuck came up with that theory.
Let's find his name.
Should
I could
not
scroll back
have
up.
a job anymore.
Sergeant Dumb F.
He's probably retired now. And
If he wasn't, he will be.
so, is there other theories on this, or where are
There's
we
a
going
lot of other
now?
theories, but I think first we have to establish a pattern of unexplained missing children out of wildlife areas. And remember, I told you I've got some
the
stories.
4. Okay.
I'm only going to talk about 4. Now, these 4 come from a documentary based on a book called Missing 411. And in that documentary, whoever is responsible for compiling these stories say they're currently sitting at 1,600 missing kids with all similar characteristics to that of Jarod. And they get a new case every month. So I'm only going to talk about 4.
1,600?
But let's just say that it is a drop in a very, very large bucket.
Man.
So let's just jump in. I want to get your take. Is this theory that we don't understand what's happening to these kids reasonable? So let's start the first one.
Okay.
So the first eerily similar story took place in the Salmon Chalice National Forest in a town called Lador, which is located in Idaho Falls, Idaho. 2-year-old Dior, it is Dior. I don't know why I said it like that. Dior Kuntz Jr. went missing while camping with his mom, his dad, his grandpa, and his grandpa's friend Isaac.
I have to say that's an awesome name. Dior Kuntz.
Dior Kuntz Jr.
Man.
But it's not spelled like the brand Dior. It's with a D. E.
I just think the combo sounds like a
Dior
football player.
Kuntz.
Who are you
What he
drafting
could
for
have
your
been.
fantasy team?
Kuntz.
Kuntz.
D. Kuntz.
Dior.
Oh, if only. He went missing. The family had set up camp 7 miles from the road at Timber Creek Campground. From their campsite, it was a pretty steep uphill climb to a creek where the family planned to spend time fishing. The family was basically as isolated as you could be. Now, Dior Sr. and Jessica, Dior Jr.'s mom,
Where are they camping?
in Idaho Falls,
Okay.
decided to go visit the creek and asked little Dior if he wanted to go with them. Dior followed them for a short while, but then decided he would rather spend time back at the campsite with his grandpa, who was known to bribe his grandson with candy. So we know why Dior wanted to return and hang out with his grandpa.
Oh, yeah. That's grandpa's secret weapon right
Yes. But when Dior's parents returned, they noticed that Dior was gone. And that was the last time they ever saw Dior.
there. Is the grandpa there? What?
Now, the grandpa says that he was there the entire time and simply lost sight of Dior. But most people think that his grandpa went inside his camping trailer for just a moment. And during those few moments when he didn't have eyes on Dior, Dior simply disappeared. Now, the family searched on their own for only 15 to 20 minutes and then immediately called police. Searches ensued for days, and yet literally no sign of young Dior has ever been found. And let me describe the search effort. Searchers searched through the creek, literally on their hands and feet. They searched wolf and bear dens for any signs of the young boy, and yet nothing was found. No signs of a struggle. There was no blood or DNA ever found in the surrounding areas. Dior's mom was convinced that if her son had encountered an animal, his 2 large boots would have been kicked off in the melee and would have been left behind as a clue for the family to follow. And despite police involvement with investigators, even the FBI looked at the case. No one was named as a person of interest. Dior simply became another victim of whatever looks deep inside the woods.
God. I'm not too thrilled about these missing kid stories, but
No, who would be?
Especially living in Colorado, where when we get in the mountains, it is so you're just free. You're just like, nothing can happen. I mean, the worst that can happen is, little Johnny falls, scrapes his knee, or
Who's Johnny?
Not our child, but Paulson, that's just gonna release those names.
I'm so confused.
But but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah. It's
I-
heartbreaking to think that your refuge, which the mountains have been that for us,
yeah.
is not the lovely paradise that you think it is.
And growing up here too, like we'd go up to the mountains, and me and my siblings were allowed to just roam. I mean, we legit would go miles away from, 8 years on, maybe a little younger, and we would go miles away, and
Yeah.
parents would be like, be back here like an hour or 2 hours. We had no idea what that meant.
You weren't clocking the sun's movement across the
maybe
big
somebody
sky.
had a Casio on, but it wasn't always.
Casio, you fancy.
Is that fancy? I don't think it
We
wasn't that a
we didn't
Walmart
have
brand?
watches.
I thought
growing
Casio was a
up.
Walmart brand.
We barely had shoes. So just kidding. I'm joking. I'm kidding.
Oh, you're poor.
We pull.
Well, if you weren't tossing your shoes on top of the electrical wires because you just did a deal.
Did
Or
somebody
you wanted
dirty.
to make a deal.
We grew up very different, my husband and I. All right. Well,
Off topic, but yeah, no.
I'm going to ruin it even more for you
That's
because that
great.
was one.
Dang it.
Our next story brings us back to the beautiful state of Colorado, this time in the Rocky Mountain National Park. Now follow me. On August 15th, 1958, 10-year-old Bobby Bizup, who is partially deaf, was attending a summer camp located in St. Malo. Now, St. Malo is a location that is specifically sacred to those of the Catholic faith. Story goes that a priest, I don't know if he was just hanging out in the mountains, saw a meteor in the sky. And when he went to look for where it landed, he found himself standing on a rock. This rock is where the St. Catherine Chapel of St. Malo would be built. I'm just going to highlight the meteor for like a quick second and then move on. Now, that August afternoon, Bobby was attending a summer
You already
camp.
highlighted it, right?
Yep, I'm just going to draw your attention to it. I just said a meteor landed.
I know, but did he build it on the meteor?
No, he built it on a rock, but there's meteors happening around that area.
Okay.
Now, that August afternoon, Bobby was fishing while attending a summer camp in St. Malo. A counselor approached him and told him that it was time to come back to camp and eat dinner. Bobby immediately packed his things and made to follow the counselor down to camp. When the counselor turned around to check Bobby's progress, Bobby had vanished. Now, the only route Bobby could travel was straight downhill, following the counselor to get to camp, or behind him was a steep, rocky incline that was completely unpassable. There were 3 counselors who participated in the search for Bobby that summer, and they would recall the entire time they searched. The next summer, when they returned, in the area where Bobby went missing, they found a hearing aid and bits of clothing in a ravine located on Mount Meeker. These counselors would swear that they had searched the ravine on 3 different occasions the summer before and had found nothing. No explanation has ever been given as to what happened to young Bobby Bishop.
Jeez. Okay. Next one.
Okay, let's talk about Samuel Bolholko.
Are we back at Hinterkaifeck?
No, it's not even a different language. I just don't know how to say it. Bolke. There's like an H and an L and an E. Boehlke. Bolke. I'm sorry, Sammy. Samuel Bolke. On October 6th, 2006, 8-year-old Samuel Bolke, it's so hard for me, would disappear forever, never leaving a clue in Carter Lake National Park. So Samuel was visiting the majestic area with his father when Sammy wandered ahead. And after Sammy had a negative encounter with a cyclist, Samuel's father pursued him. When Samuel noticed his father was following him, Samuel took off running and literally vanished. At 6 o'clock that evening, just disappeared. His dad's running after him.
He sees him.
And then he's gone.
That's the dad's account is, I'm chasing him.
And I lose sight. He's just gone. At 6 o'clock that evening.
Evaporated.
Yeah. You blink and they're gone. At 6 o'clock that evening, 25 searchers and tracking dogs were
sent. Is this
sent.
Carter Lake, Colorado?
No. I think it's like Oregon. Like Carter Lake is literally the top of a volcano that has filled with water. It's beautiful. If I wasn't so terrified, I would say let's go there.
Okay. Because like when I do Carter Lake, it just pops up Colorado.
Yeah. No, I think it's Oregon or Washington. Yep. I think that's where it is.
Carter Dunes, Trailhead, Carter Lake, Oregon. Yeah. All right.
All right. So 25 searchers, tracking dogs show up to look for Sammy. The search teams specifically focused on looking under thick vegetation. Their thought process was that maybe Sammy had buried himself under some of the thick brush to hide from his father. On day 2 of the search...
Yeah, his dad didn't see him.
Digging up a bunch of crap to hide.
If I move slow enough,
to like
he
make
can't
sense
see
of
me.
things that don't make sense. It's just like flabbergasting.
His dad is a T-Rex. If he would move slow enough or not at all. Oh, where'd he go?
No, he literally is following his son. He disappears, and apparently he has wedged himself under a bunch of brush.
And they're sure the dad didn't do anything to this kid.
Every one of these stories, the investigators eliminated literally every other option.
Okay.
Now, on day 2 of the search for Sammy, 2 feet of snow fell, blanketing the land.
Oh, wow.
Despite 174 people searching for the missing boy, literally no sign of him was ever discovered. Now, the prevailing theory is that he crawled under some dense shrubbery, froze to death, and then an animal ate his body.
Okay. Yeah.
And his clothes. And nothing was left behind. Not a thing. He was just a popsicle that the animal consumed, not dropping any blood. Right? That makes sense.
It's one of them popsicles with the Flintstones on it.
It's the most absurd thing. Then you have 2-year-old Keith Parks. On April 10th, 1952, in Ritter, Oregon, Keith was visiting his grandparents on their cattle ranch Easter weekend. On the morning of April 10th, Keith, along with his 2 older brothers, they went out to the barn to see a newborn calf.
Oh.
When the boy's mother called the boys in for lunch, only 2 boys returned. The search for young Keith began immediately, and this search involved over 200 people, and literally every one of them searched through the night. From the house, the searchers followed the young boy's tracks, and it totaled a distance of 3 miles.
Jeez.
The next morning, the boy's body was found an additional 5 miles from the point where the tracks ended. It was 8 miles as the crow flies. However, when you take into account the path the boy would have had to have walked to make that trek, they believe Keith traveled 12 miles.
Because he had to go around things.
From the time he went missing, which was before lunch, to 7 a.m. the next morning, which is when his body was found.
What's anything about the boys' accounts on that? Like he went with...
Well, just wait.
You said 3 other boys?
His 2 brothers.
Two other boys.
They said they went into the barn, and they said Keith went around the barn and disappeared. When they found Keith, his clothes were ripped, and he had scratches all over his face. He was found face down in the snow, but he was found alive.
What?
Despite being asked what happened, Keith, to this day, has no idea what happened to him that night.
I'm forming a theory here that is like not going to be anything in reality.
That I can't explain anything. Now, here's the story I wasn't even going to tell you. So I told you I had 4. I've told you 4. I'm going to tell you 5. So there was one searcher who was involved in looking for Jarod. She was responsible for one of the tracking dogs. And in this documentary, she's talking about another instance when she and her tracking dog are looking for a toddler who's missing in one of the Dakotas, I think. And it's like cold. It's January or February. And she and her dog are in this like surrounding area of willows. And the fog is just dense. And out of the fog, her dog releases the surprised, scared howl. And walking out of the midst is the toddler who came from literally nowhere, but naked.
No.
And they have no idea where she came from. She literally appeared as if from nowhere.
I'm going to say it now. And if I had crazy hair, I'd make a meme that went, aliens.
Well, here's the thing.
And I just hit my microphone when I said that. Let me do it again.
So
Aliens.
What do you think is making these kids vanish? Because some people have talked about Bigfoot.
Aliens.
There's also a theory that there are like feral human beings who have just like evolved in a way that they can live in the woods and like move without leaving traces and are like super advanced in terms of like physical features. So I'm assuming you're saying aliens.
Aliens.
Dun, dun, dun. Aliens.
Especially the one that ended up alive and can't remember anything.
And being transplanted like 8 miles as the crow flies away from where he was picked up. Excuse me, not picked up, allegedly. I'm sorry, Keith. Whatever happened to you? I wish you the best.
I'll play devil's advocate for a second. Or demons, devils. Maybe not devil's advocate. Reality's advocate for a second. There's also awful human beings out there. And the forest offers some very, very good advantages towards somebody that wants to do something bad to somebody else.
But if they're following his footprints and we're talking about little Keith, right? Who was transported 12 walking miles, 8 straight miles. You can follow his footprints for like 3 miles.
Right?
Mm-hmm. There was snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Snow had fallen. What's causing a 3-year-old boy to wander 3 miles away
Maybe
from
he didn't
where...
wander that far. Somebody took him that far. Somebody that...
But their footprints were never seen. Just the little boys. He just carried this abductor on his shoulders as a 2-year-old boy. He's 2. He's toddling for 3 miles.
There was
following what? No other it was homeboy's footprints for 3 miles. And then they stop.
They actually have toddler footprints
for
that far.
3 miles. And then they stop and his body is found 5 miles away. What happened? No evidence. That's what's blowing my mind. If a human being is abducting a child, There's evidence of
And there's
somewhere in the
1,600
woods.
cases. Since when?
According
what was
to
the
this
time frame on that?
this person,
Just
I don't know.
since they started keeping track
Yep, they have 1,600 cases.
of just strange, unsolved.
So we clearly don't buy mountain lion. No. You think there's a chance for abductors?
Any animal, no animals.
Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
No, because we have no like. I don't know. I have an easier time thinking aliens have something to do with this than I do.
So we're thinking
Sasquatch,
abduction or aliens.
I mean, or alien abduction. That's more what I'm thinking. But there's no evidence of that either.
So why did they bring the evidence, the articles back later? Literally, Jarod Atadero's tooth is sitting on this.
Yeah, and you mentioned a story where they definitely searched an area,
and then his hearing aid and little bits of his clothes are left behind. But
oh god!
All right, can I tell you one more story?
I guess.
Okay. Gosh. So 3-year-old Casey Hathaway was playing with 2 other children in his grandparents' yard. From this place of what should have been absolute safety, Casey vanished without a trace. After having been missing for 2 days in the North Carolina woods, Casey was found, calling for his mother 40 or 50 yards deep into the woods. He was soaking wet, cold, and tangled in thorns. When asked how he was able to survive, he told his mom that a friendly bear had kept him company the entire time. The boy's aunt made the following statement to the media. It was a miracle. God sent him a friend to keep him safe. What I can't help but wonder is, if God needs to send something in the form of a bear to protect a little boy lost in the woods, what evil could be lurking in those woods that would require such protection?
Oof. My brain is just going 100 miles per hour right now. I'm thinking of so many different things. And the more you told us about some of these, and you kept mentioning Sasquatch, I mean, is Harry out there from Harry and the Hendersons?
No, he's too nice.
No, that's what I'm saying. He protected that boy, maybe one of them is nice and.
But maybe it wasn't even a bear. Maybe the little boy thought it was a bear because that was his only frame of reference. So what the heck was keeping him safe?
It's Harry.
And I love that I tried to find
Bigfoot and
follow-up reports, and I was just like, nope, a bear saved him. The end.
So with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, there's that ongoing show that somehow has gone 16 seasons or something. They never find him. But people keep watching, hoping.
The hide and seek champion of the world.
Yeah, is he so skilled at being so camouflaged, just
the Loch Ness
disappear?
Monster.
Which at the end of that movie, Harry and the Hendersons, remember the very end?
I try to make it so epic, and you're like, well, Harry and the Hendersons.
Look, you brought up Sasquatch. We got to go into it, but
I think you have to talk about Bigfoot.
At the very
end.
Kids
missing from the woods?
Well, yeah, but the very end of the movie, remember Harry goes out back to the forest, and you're looking at the forest, you don't see anything, and all of a sudden, there's 4 of them that pop up out of nowhere, in plain sight. So that's the theory on Bigfoot, is that they can hide in they can literally be standing there, and you have no idea. I don't know. It's not like a chameleon type thing. They don't actually become a tree, but for some reason they know how to stand to look like a tree. Whatever. Anyway, that is
disguise.
Yeah. Little Dana Carvey trick there. Turtle.
I just don't even know.
No, I don't either. I mean, that's
every story I read, I was just like, I can't explain any of it because we know what to expect. Bad things happen to people. Evidence is left behind.
There's do
blood, there's DNA,
things.
There's footprints, there's fingerprints, there's all these different things.
Yeah.
none of these stories have any of those.
Well, and what?
So what can possibly vanish an entire child so that when 200 plus people are searching in an area where the child could not have like walked beyond and they find nothing, something had to have been at play.
Like even with the theories,
and it wasn't mountain lions. And the fact that they think we believe that, I just can't even handle that.
Well, there's a lot of things
Many
they
things
think
we
we'll
believe.
But when we go off to things that we don't even know if they exist or not, aliens, Sasquatch, whatever, this being that you mentioned that's in the woods.
Yeah, something about feral humans.
Feral humans.
Like they were never civilized, so they just like acclimated to wildlife and they can move in ways that us civilized human beings.
They're just Mowgli's.
Yeah, no shoes, loincloths.
Surviving.
But
all of it, so I get stumped on, you mentioned 2 cases now, obviously the one that we started with and another one where there's these items that are left behind. And it's like, what? That takes thought. Especially if it is true.
One tooth.
And one tooth. Like it's
no jaw, one tooth. Like, where would that tooth come from?
I don't know. I mean, the only thing with the Bigfoot Sasquatch theory that I could think of is, I don't know, maybe it's like they're on a certain level of intelligence that for some reason to them, it's like a peace offering, like a thank you. Thank you for our child. Like we're going to raise him. But then I really, I don't know. I always go back to like reality that
none of this is in reality.
There's some
like none of it.
Awful human beings out there. And like I said, the woods offer the ability to do things that you would never see in any area that has a lot of life and vibrance, such as a city or a neighborhood or, anywhere where there's a lot of human beings trotting around. So you get out there and it's open season.
I don't think you can discount every single story. Dior was literally under the eyesight of adults for the entire time, except for maybe 5 minutes when his grandpa went into the camp, like the camper, and he's just gone. And there's nobody around. A dad is literally following his son, running away from him, and it's just gone. It's just gone.
And then I go back to aliens.
Well, the government already said they're real. So this isn't even like a conspiracy extension. This is maybe it was the aliens extension.
Apparently Mexico's got some actual beings.
Know. I think they look ridiculous.
Well, aliens will look ridiculous.
All right.
But they've been around, like those aliens were found like 100 years ago or something like that. Anyway, I don't know. My brain just, like I said, it's going a million miles an hour, and I'm thinking of all these different things, and everything I think of
makes you never want to let our kids be in the woods ever.
But here's the thing. All right.
You don't believe it?
No, I do. I believe all this happened and awful things happen, but you threw out the number of 1,600 cases are similar that have happened in the woods. But also, why don't we compare that to how many people go out in the woods with their kids and let their kids do whatever they want and nothing happens? I guarantee you that number is like 0.0002% of every person that's gone in the woods with their kids. Right. So it's so small.
Well, I'm going to put some pieces together for you real quick and see if I can scare you. Not letting our kids go in the woods.
Thank you.
So I ended by asking what evil could be lurking in those dark woods that would require such protection. I'm going to ask you some questions. Could it be an evil that inadvertently revealed itself to Jarod Atadero, allowing him to see something out of the corner of his eye, prompting him to ask complete strangers, hey, do you guys know if there are bears in this area?
Oh, the bear thing.
Then, in surprising him for the first time, an animal prompt him to let out a playful scream, not out of fear, but maybe out of surprise.
Like, oh, there are bears
that
out here.
His sister heard, as well as other adults who were hiking with him that day. Now, this is where I'm trying to convince myself. Maybe the evil is something so malevolent that helicopters, the one search tool that might allow for children to be found, simply cease to function properly when they are close to it. Unknown entities so powerful that they can vanish children without leaving behind any known clue to humankind, like blood, hair, or traces of DNA. Now, I'm not sure exactly what happened to these children, and frankly, legitimately thinking about it terrifies me to my core. So let's just go with what survivalist Les Stroud said. Whatever is happening here, it is beyond our understanding. And maybe that is exactly where evil like that should stay.